for County Commission. The primary election will take place on August 18th, so get out and vote. Early voting also starts on July 21st at the Teton County Clerk's Office. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization with expertise in voting and elections. Their mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. For over a century, they have valiantly worked to educate voters and promote free, fair, and accessible elections. So if you have the chance, thank your League of Women Voters volunteers tonight. They're awesome. My name is Jasmine Hall, and I'm the State Government and Education Reporter at the Jackson Hole News and Guide. I will be tonight's moderator instead of taking on my usual role as question asker, but we are in great hands. We have folks from Buckrail, the Jackson Hole News and Guide, and KHL 89.1. Over the years in Wyoming and in Jackson, it's been a pleasure to put on the forum with the League of Women Voters. The League and the News and Guide also partner with the Teton County Library, which is so great. They make this space available to us. Buckrail and KHL 89.1 are a community radio station. I also wanted to say we have great attendance from the candidates tonight, and that's not something you always see. So if you're interested in having a candidate come to forums here or across the state, you should really reach out to them and encourage them to attend. Tomorrow is the Teton County Coroner's Race Forum at the library, which starts at 6 p.m. and will run until around 7:30 p.m. These are not the only forums being put on by the League of Women Voters. There are many others for statewide elections that are being held in Casper and Laramie this month. These are co-hosted by the League of Women Voters Wyoming, WyoFile, Wyoming Public Media, and they will be live streamed on WPR. Unfortunately, our forum dates overlapped, but recordings will be available on the League of Women Voters YouTube channel, and next week will feature races for the governor and U.S. House race. The full schedule is listed on the League of Women Voters Wyoming website. I also wanted to say, I know this is a long intro, but Wyo Gibbs ends tonight, and the League of Women Voters and the Library Foundation would appreciate any donations. Before we get started, please silence your cell phones. Tonight's forum focuses on candidates in the Democratic primary for the Teton County Board of County Commissioners. 3 out of the 6 will move on, and we have Dr. Brent Blue, Mark Newcomb, Allie Dunford, Luther Probst, Karen Chin, and Wes Gardner. But before we get into the debate between these Democratic contenders, we are letting uncontested candidates introduce themselves to you all for 2 minutes. I'd like to welcome those candidates up now. All right, first we're going to do Alex Wormsup. How pretty.
I feel like a warm-up fight for a big match here. Good evening. It's great to see everybody here. This is grassroots democracy in action. I love it. My name is Alex Wormsev, and I'm running for county commissioner as an independent. Why? I'm running because I care deeply about this community, and I think we can do better. Why as an independent? Because I do not want to be beholden to any party's political platform or ideology. I want to vote for what I believe is in Teton County's best interest, not what some politician in Cheyenne thinks or what some out-of-state dark-money Pat tells me to do. I've lived in Teton County for almost 20 years. I raised 4 children here. This is home. I've served on the board of the Jackson Hole Land Trust in Silicon Couloir. In the winter, I am a ski patroller at Snow King. If you have an uphill pass, I'm sure we've met. But I want to highlight my 7 years experience as a county planning commissioner. I understand the rules and regulations. I also understand the frustrations with those same rules and regulations. I know how to affect change. I am proud of what we accomplished on the Planning Commission with new regulations for bear-proof trash cans, regulations on building on steep slopes, including driveways, converting Legacy Lodge into affordable housing, wildlife-friendly fencing, and approving northern South Block. I know how to balance growth and conservation. Now it is time for me to move on from being an advisor to being a decider. We need to remember that we are a community first and a resort second. relevant new solutions to old problems. With your help, we can do that. Thank you.
Pretty short. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Good evening. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and everyone here tonight. My name is Vicki O'Donoghue. I am running for Teton County Commissioner. I've lived in Teton County for over 30 years. I've spent 16 years teaching in Fairfax County, Virginia, and I continue teaching today as the owner of Jackson Hole Driving Academy. I've spent much of my life coaching, working with young people, supporting families, and serving others. Through my work, I see the roads, our traffic, our families, the challenges people are facing in this community. I do not believe a county commissioner needs to pretend that they know all the answers. Good leadership begins with listening, asking the right questions, gathering the facts, and making sure the public is here before major decisions are made. My priorities are: number one is safety, responsible spending, transparency, strong infrastructure, housing for local families, and protecting the character of Teton County. I support thoughtful growth, but before approving major projects, we must understand the effects of our roads, water, sewer, public safety, taxpayers, and existing neighborhoods. I support throughout growth, but before approving any major projects, we must understand the effects on roads, water, sewer, public safety, taxpayers, and existing neighborhoods. I might have repeated that. Every taxpayer dollar should have a purpose, a measurement, a result, and a public accountability. I am running to bring common sense, accountability, and a strong voice for the people to the county commission. My message is very simple. Listen first, safety first, community first, and together we can keep Teton true. Thank you.
My name is East.
Machimura, 2026 candidate for the county commissioner. Thank you, ladies, for having us tonight. I wasn't going to interact with the news and guide again, since it seems that they think that apologizing for printing false information absolves them from any ethical standards of due diligence. But since here we are, I would also like to address the attitude towards, secondly, I'd like to address the attitude by some candidates toward residents who benefit from inherited wealth or family assistance. There should be no criticism of hard work of successful businesses and saving responsibly in order to establish trust funds that allow generations to purchase homes and remain in this community. This is something that we should celebrate, not apologize for. Lastly, my concern is that some organizations presenting themselves as grassroots advocacy are being supported financially through complex networks of nonprofit or corporate entities, some of which have no apparent function. Most people haven't taken the time to review the 2024 campaign contributions, but the implications are not good. Financial transparency and accountability to the public is essential. You'll see me support development while protecting open spaces, and I believe in infrastructure maintenance versus expansion. Thank you.
Heather. Let's see. Thank you, sir. A lot of papers to keep track of. All right. Well, so next we're going to move into the forum between the Democrat candidates. First, I'm going to go over the rules. You guys will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond to each question after we have a 1-minute introduction for you all. These will be recorded, so please speak into the microphone. If anyone who wants a friend to watch later or a family member who couldn't make it, they'll be available on the library website. One of the key factors in this is that a timekeeper will show you a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left. Tonight that's Susan Dong, she's wonderful. And then a red card will go up when it's time for you to stop. When the stop is shown, please finish your sentence without extending your answer. The red cards on your table do play a factor. These are bonus time. You will each be given a red card, which may be used twice, allowing 1 minute of extra time per use. You may use the red card to add time to an answer you are giving, to rebut a fellow candidate, or to speak on an issue that was not raised during regular questioning. To use your red card, simply indicate to the moderator that you'd like to use it. But first off, we're going to have a little fun, and we're going to do an icebreaker question. So if you guys want to take that away, that'd be great.
Sure. Thanks so much for being here, everyone, audience and candidates. We wanted to know what you've been reading. We are at a library event after all. Have been reading anything lately? Maybe just the last thing you read that stood out to you on this.
He asked what you have been reading lately. And Brent, if you want to go first, that'd be great.
We do our introduction.
We're going to do the introduction after.
Oh, yeah, please. Stand Up and Kill First is one I've been reading. It's actually just finished. This is Alfie Israeli Rassad from 1947 as a forward cause. And it's a pretty striking going through the plan. It's not diving.
I've been listening on audio actually to Ron Chernow's The House of Morgan about the J.P. Morgan empire and how it was so influential in not just national events, but global events, economic, even in national and international affairs. Pretty fascinating, and it's a massive book actually, only halfway through, but it plays into quite various situations throughout.
Should I stand?
Yeah, if you want to.
I'm reading a book called How to Fall in Love with the Future, A Time Traveler's Guide to Changing the World. It's by Rob Hopkins, and it's about how to change the world.
I just finished Kevin Fedarko's book, A Walk in the Park, about his hiking in Grand Canyon National Park, and now I'm reading Evan Osnos, The Haves and the Have-Yachts. Which has nothing to do with our community. It's about income inequality. And it's because he's coming to speak at the book festival on September 25th.
I will have to admit that I am not currently reading a book, but what I have been reading a lot is the newspaper. Like, there's a new, interesting, complicated, problematic thing happening every day. So I have been diligently trying to keep up with the news our own community is making.
Karen, thanks for setting me up. I'm a history major. I love to read, but I got 2 little kids and about 6 jobs, so I've been a little derelict in my reading recently. Although Stretchy McStuffins, The Hobbit. We just finished The Hobbit, and we read When the Well Is before that. My favorite authors are Joseph Conrad and Sam
Note. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And can you guys all hear me in the back right now? Okay, perfect.
Jasmine, are we going like?
I think so. We're going to have you start off with your introduction. Yeah, okay. Opposite? Yeah. So you guys will have 1 minute to introduce yourselves, and then we will move into questions that our journalists have put together tonight.
Great, thanks. My name is Wes Gardner, running for County Commissioner. I feel like I've said that a few times. I'm a 30-year resident of Teton County. moved here for the mountains, stayed for the friends. Got married, had kids, started my business all here. And, in 2016, I was floored by the results of the national election and started to think about, well, if he could do it, then maybe I should do something. And then in 2018, I wonder who he is. In 2018, I saw some things I didn't like, walked into the clerk's office and asked if I could run for office. And it was a little late, it was after filing deadline, but I was independent at the time. And because of that, I was able to do what Alex is doing. Hats off to you, it's a lot of work. I've run 4 campaigns. I finally won in 2022. And I've loved every minute of the job since. Well, maybe not every bit. I bring a perspective of a student to local government. I like to study problems, and I like to be thoughtful about the decisions I make. And my time's up. Thank you.
I'm going to start the sitting trend, and maybe we'll just sit because just be more comfortable.
Good evening. I'm Karen Chin, and I'm running for Teton County Commission. I moved to Jackson in 2008. In those early years, I worked in hospitality and served as a national park ranger. In 2014, I was accepted into the Conservation Leadership Institute at the Jackson Hole Conservation Alliance. This is a program created and supported by local leaders to encourage the next generation of civic leaders and grassroots organizers. You probably already know an alumni of this program. They run after-school programs for our kids, advocate for our neighbors, represent us in the state legislature, and even share the stage with me tonight. That program and its alumni have shown me how much can happen when people are willing to learn, listen, and take responsibility for their community. Personally, I went on to advocate for public transportation and affordable housing in Teton County, teach this program both here and in other Wyoming communities, lobby against far-right policies in Cheyenne, and win, and encourage new folks to step up and run for office. Now I'm the one running for office because I want to continue giving back to the place that has shaped me as a person, as a parent, as a community member, and as a leader. I'm stepping up now because I believe we deserve the future we've been promised, a Teton County that puts community first.
I'm trying.
Oh. Would you like to wait?
You're fine.
Hi, Luther Probst. I've served on the county commission now for about 8 years. I'm lucky that Representative Liz Storer, HD 23, finds me amusing. She's here in the room with us. I'm a land use lawyer and land use planner by training. I first came to this valley in 1976 when I finished high school. I have only vague memories of that, and you can decide for yourself what that means. And started working here on and off as an outside consultant in 1990. In terms of closing the circle, the person whose contributions to World Wildlife Fund allowed me to work here was Gil Ordway, and he was a great friend and supporter and mentor. And ever since then, my whole career has been in helping communities anticipate the future and realize the future that they want. I've worked throughout Western North America in that regard, and now that I'm a county commissioner, I realize how much I did not know then.
Hi, my name is Allie Dunford, and I'm running for Teton County Commissioner. 14 years ago, I moved here thinking I would spend 1 year being a ski bum. I was making $7.50 an hour working as a cashier at Nick Wilson's, for those of you that remember those days. And before long, I found myself dumpster diving for food behind the old Jackson Hole grocer. What I found was dumpster after dumpster full of perfectly edible food. At the same time, I was quickly realizing how unaffordable this community was and how many people were struggling to make ends meet. So within 6 months of moving here, I founded Whole Food Rescue to serve those in need in our community and make our community more sustainable. I'm a problem solver, and my superpowers are in building community and bringing new ideas to life. I really look forward to this next chapter of using my skills to serve this community yet again.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Huge thanks to the League of Women Voters. This is kind of the signature event, at least for me, every election cycle. And as well, I really appreciate the media and the job that you do. You guys dig in, and I'm not trying to just get your favoritisms, but thank you really for hosting this event and for being here. My name is Mark Newcomb, and I was fortunate enough to have grown up here. My father was a mountain guide. Before I followed in his footsteps, I worked as a surveyor's helper, worked as a ski patrol, and then went on to become a mountain guide around the world. After about 15 years of doing that, I recognized some development that looked about right in this valley, small little houses up above the Hanson Ranch, big open space that had been preserved. And then as time went by, I saw other development that didn't look about right, and I really wondered where the valley was going, what I could do to help. I volunteered as a planning commissioner for 6 years. That springboarded me into being a county commissioner. I'm now in my 12th year as county commissioner. I have 18 years of planning under my belt, and that really matters when it comes to making critical decisions about the direction of the community.
I'm Brent Lou. I think most of you know me. I've been your county coroner for almost 12 years. I'm on your hospital board and been on the Board of Health for 8 years. Basically, I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal. I don't have any problem saying no to power, and I don't have any third rail issues that I don't address. I think that safety is a key issue here, but the other issue about affordability is a tough one because we've been Aspenized, and that toothpaste is out of the tubes. We can't change that. We can help in the housing area and make that more affordable, but we're not going to change grocery prices or the prices you get charged in the restaurants are at Target. But I think that I have some new ideas for the county and some ways we can fund some things, and I'd love to be your county commissioner.
All right, thank you so much, candidates. We're going to move into the question asking portion of tonight. I also wanted to say that the audience is allowed to submit written questions. So there are League of Women Voters volunteers around the room. You'll see them. They have postcards, and if you take one of those, they'll pick it up and bring it over to our journalists. I'm going to have Brent start off with answering the first question of the night.
Awesome, thank you, Ed. So, as Jasmine, our great moderator, told the room, we have a mix of 3 incumbent candidates and 3 challengers. So our question is, if you're a challenger, why do you think the county needs new leadership? And if you're an incumbent, why is your experience an asset?
I think that the 3 current commissioners have done a reasonable job, but I think there are some imaginative and interesting ways to generate income that we can't get from property taxes that can be used to supplement what we do in the county. One of the proposals that I've made before that never went anywhere but still is a possibility, for instance, is there's no reason why the county and the city can't get the money that is paid for parking at the airport. That's not restricted by grant assurances from the FAA because it's on the passenger side of the airport. That's a great way to create some income. We can also get income from the FBO. The airport netted $10 million on the fixed base operations at the airport. That could pay for a lot of housing in the county. So I think there's some imaginative ways to do things. I also think we need to really address some specific issues like water quality. The Water Board came up with a proposal 15 months ago about how important it was to start inspecting our sewer systems and really understand how bad the situation was. And the system has really failed. We have over 3,000 known septic systems in this county. There's not one inspection. So I think there's things I can offer to the board that has not been addressed to everyone and their life in this care.
Well, thank you. First of all, it's been a true honor to serve for almost 12 years. And what really drives my service is a passion for the community. As a guide, I always felt like I wanted to get the best out of my clients. And as a county commissioner, I am truly striving to get the best out of this community. So my experience, especially with the land development regulations, really can matter. And last winter, I had my sights on another job. It turned out that job was going to require me to step down from the commission sooner than I expected, sooner than the end of my term. and I would have missed out on some of the critical efforts that we are taking on now. The creation of Conservation Department. That Conservation Department is going to be intertwined with the Planning Department and with the Public Works Department. And the water quality is going to get woven into this, and it is a crucial new step that I am really excited about. It's something I worked on for years, actually, as far back as 2016, talking to citizens, asking why don't you have a conservation department, starting to wonder how we were going to get that into fruition. It's almost there, and I would love to pursue that with the experience that I have. As well, we're going to be faced with new challenges that really do require a deep, intimate understanding of the land development regulations. I read those at night, not every night, but I pour through them. They really are the critical book of spells, if you will, and if you have knowledge of those, then staff doesn't drive the discussion when it comes to critical planning items that guide the future of this community. And I really do want this community to be the best it can be.
I'd like to ask the audience for a show of hands. If you feel like we're moving in the right direction, please raise your hand. Well, it's a broad question. There's a lot of things, right? Housing, conservation, community cohesion, community well-being. I didn't see a lot of hands get raised. And what I'm hearing from my constituents is that we're not happy with the way things are going. And this is an incredibly hard job. I've stepped into it over the last 2 months, and I'm drinking from a fire hose trying to understand all of the different things that the 5 leaders that are keeping this community functioning are dealing with, and it's a lot. That being said, I really see this work as cathedral building. It's never done. The work is never done. And I think that it's time for a new generation of ideas. It's time for a new voice. It's time for a new perspective. I have spent the last 2 years working with a physicist at Utah State University in a field of study called civilizational futures. And you can take me out to coffee or we can go on a walk anytime to talk about that. But what it is it's looking at the system dynamics of what's happening on a global scale. And as much as we like to think that we are isolated and remote here in Teton County, COVID taught us how interconnected we are. We are dependent on global supply chains that can fracture and unravel very quickly. And my interest really is in helping our community prepare for the times that are coming.
Good question. Three thoughts. First is I bring a lifetime of experience working in gateway communities. In the mid-90s, I co-authored a book, Balancing Nature and Commerce in Gateway Communities, and I've been thinking about this and leading in this and working on this all over North America for a long time. So experience, entire career working to help communities realize conservation and smart growth and building community. Second is values. I am willing to be out there that I want to protect community. Sometimes that means saying no. And 3, this balance between independence and leadership. Some days I'm really happy that I feel like I helped lead us into something that's really valuable. We recently submitted objections to the expansion of Grand Targhee Resort into critical wildlife habitat, and led the effort to help make sure that our voice was heard in that. And sometimes I'm willing to exercise independence and to be alone. I've stood alone against development that I thought took more from the community than it gave to the community. And I'm willing to stand alone against development that I think just brings more and more growth with marginal benefits to the community. I'm willing to stand up when I feel like the state highway department is not adapting its policies to our specific needs. I'm willing to send letters to the Forest Service on public lands. I'm willing to say yes to things like the Water Quality Management Plan that is a good roadmap for moving towards the future. And so willing to be that independent voice sometimes and sometimes able to provide leadership that moves this community to where it wants to be.
One of the things that got me engaged in the civic space was just before I took the Conservation Leadership Institute, our 2012 comprehensive plan came out. And it promised a vision of Teton County that was community first, resort second. I believe this promise, and I got involved in ways that I could support it through advocacy, through grassroots organizing, through knocking on doors, campaigns, electing leaders that supported this vision as well. But it is now nearly a decade, it's over a decade later, and what I'm seeing is more resort and less community. And so I'm stepping up now, because if our leaders are not able to deliver on the promise of our comprehensive plan of community first and resort second, then I would like to be part of a cohort of new leaders that can deliver on that promise.
I feel like I'm kind of in the.
That's all. That was it on.
I'll just talk about it. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle, being one term on the commission. I still have a lot of fresh ideas that have yet to gain traction with the commission. I look forward to another 4 years so that I can really get some momentum behind those ideas. So I've got those ideas, and I've got valuable experience. It took about a year to really find my sea legs, and once I did, I started to get pretty active. There's a lot of things in motion. We have a $118 million Justice Center that I've been instrumental in making sure that we're staying on budget and on time. We've got a project at 90 Virginia Way that hopefully I'll get into a little later. There's a lot of LDR updates that are currently in the mix, and looking forward to seeing those through. We've got a big discussion around the funding of joint departments that I have some pretty unique perspectives that I bring to the table. We're just about to hire a new county administrator, looking forward to bringing that person on. Staff morale for the county was not very good when I came on, and is a lot better today, and I look forward to continuing that trend. The Munger line, which I've been bugging about for 3 years now, hopefully we're finally getting to a solution, and the continued evolution start. There are a lot of things I'm working on. I hope with your support to be able to continue working on them.
All right, thank you so much, Candace, for answering that first question. We're going to have Mark Newcomb answer our second question tonight.
Thank you. Hear it?
No.
No. Well, I can, they can. People back here, as surprised I can. No. Okay, I'll just.
Yes, yeah.
No. Don't.
I'll stop that.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna borrow an audience question because my question was something you all addressed in your introduction. Define affordable housing, i.e., how much should an affordable unmet range for?
Define affordable housing, i.e., how much should a one-bedroom affordable rent for? Well, the technical answer is in our housing rules and regulations, and it maps out 100% of area median income, what is area median income, and essentially calls anything less than 120% area median income affordable housing. And then it's broken down into categories. So if you earn less than 80% or even less than 50% of area median income, what you can pay for rent would probably be in the $1,000, $1,200 range per month. If you are in the 100 to 120% area median income range, then you're probably able to pay more like somewhere around $1,500 to $2,500 for a one-bedroom rental. And I guess I look at the affordability story as both a wage story and an affordability story. I don't believe that our job is to simply try and provide affordable housing down to the minimum wage that employers are willing to pay. I expect that a community that is being the best community that it can be is filled with employers who are willing and able to pay their employees a living wage. And the county has been working very hard to pay our staff living wages. So if you're a pool attendant now working year-round, you're going to earn around $70,000 a year. And that should allow you to help to afford a reasonable rental rate. So that's my answer.
As a renter and a single income household, my budget is around $1,000 a month. and sometimes that feels like a stretch. I recently was trying to find housing in Jackson and could not find anything. It was pay $2,500 to have a roommate, and oh, by the way, you're not allowed to have a dog. I have a dog, so what am I going to do? Just give her away? So I ended up moving to Alta, which is Teton County. Sometimes people like to joke that I've moved to Utah, but I haven't. Just on the other side of the Tetons. And I feel really lucky that I found an affordable spot to live. It's $1,000 all included. And the commute is awful. I will be the first to admit that. However, it was the thing that made sense for my budget. And you know, I think affordability depends a lot on your life circumstance. Are you single or double income household? Do you have college debt? Do you have medical debt? There's so many factors that go into affordability, obviously, but you know, paying $2,500 to have a roommate and not be able to have an animal companion seems unaffordable to me.
Good question, Charlie. Mark Newcomb blows me away with his ability to provide the kind of answer he did. I'm not going to try. I'm impressed, Mark. What I want to focus on is more what it means for the community, the people in this community that are lacking housing. And to me, it's three things. First, affordable housing should not be a function of more growth. We've got to decouple affordable housing for the people who make this community a community. You have to decouple that from more and more hotels, more and more high-end homes. That's not a formula that's going to create the kind of community that people who need housing are going to be able to afford. Secondly, in our affordable housing, we need a variety of housing types. We need everything from people that are here seasonally for 1 year to work as a bus driver in the winter or to work at a camp in the summer. We need the full variety from that level all the way to department directors and people of that, people whose entire career is here and who need executive level housing to stay in the community. And third, those who make this community need to have a fighting chance to be able to live here. And that's the key. And that means for me that we need special focus on our first responders, our firefighters, our law enforcement officers, the people that run to trouble instead of away from it. Also the school teachers and the people who provide the retail services that make this place work more than we need to just have more growth and build big new apartment buildings in order to accommodate a new hotel.
I will say I also don't have as technical of an answer as Mark did, but what I do know is the story of a friend of mine who some of you may remember her name, Robin Vincent. So she was an amazing journalist here. She worked for and ran, she was the editor at Planet JH, which is now defunct, our local newspaper, and also built up the KHOL newsroom as their director as well. She is a dear friend of mine, and she was an amazing professional in this community. When the Grove apartments, the rental units came online, she, as a single person with no pets, wanted to rent one of those apartments. She went to go sign up for it. She got chosen through the lottery. These are deed-restricted, affordable rental units. I don't exactly quote me on this, but I believe they were renting for $1,800. And she had to pass on that. That was not affordable to her as someone at the top of her industry in this community. She could not afford that. She now does not live here anymore. We have lost her talent, and I think that's a shame.
When I moved here in 1997, I paid $400 a month for rent. I moved about a dozen times in 5 years, finally found a landlady who would have me for over a decade, still paying $400 a month. So when I look at rents today, there's no way that were I to move here today, I would be able to stay. You know, what's affordable depends on your income. And that's what we've tried to do with the affordability matrix. If you're under 80% of the median income, you're paying $1,300 a month. I just did this for a certain meeting we had yesterday. 80 to 120 is 2,200, and 120 plus is $3,120. So if you're at 120% of median income or above, it's $3,120 a month. And that's why I said no yesterday to the Virginian project. Let me correct that. That's why I said no to the partnership with the developer. Because in their affordability mix, 76% of the units, 3 out of 4 basically, were that price and higher. And to me, that's not the kind of project that I think we should be pumping $43 million of public funds into. That's not the affordability that I read about in the RFP response that they provided 3 years ago, and that's why I voted no. We can talk about employers not paying their people enough, but there are a lot of local employers, I see some in here today, whose businesses have gone out because they can't afford to keep employees. So it really is a balance. Thank you.
Affordability of housing is a problem. It just happens to be a problem here on Stenovich. In the past, people would move here to take very low-wage jobs, do anything they could to live in apartments with 3 or 5 other people, just so they could live in this environment that they have here and enjoy what we enjoy living here. Then Target came in a few years ago and offered $24 an hour at their base wage for anyone. And all of a sudden, the minimum wage in Jackson came out. And that really set the minimum wage. And the employers are going to have to pay people more so they can afford to live here. They're going to have employees. And the county needs to work with these employers in things like helping them with zoning, helping them with density, working with them on permit fees so that they can build employee housing that is affordable for their employees. But, everybody that moves to Jackson is not going to qualify for employee housing, and everybody that moves to Jackson is not going to be able to find a reasonable place to live. That.
All right, thank you, candidates. We're gonna have Ali answer this question first.
You got it.
All right. How do you view the relationship between the county and the town of Jackson? And how would you work to improve and maintain that relationship?
I am lucky to call both town councilors and county commissioners friends of mine. And what I hear from them is that things are not going great. I think a lot of it has to do with the budgeting around our joint departments. And I think the first thing that needs to happen really is building a shared understanding of what we're doing together. I think that we can get caught in the weeds and the numbers, and we're missing the forest for the trees. And while the numbers are important and it does matter how it is split between town and county, ultimately we're wasting our capacity and we're wasting time as we fight our way to get to agreement on the budgets. So, for me, first, it's really curiosity and kindness, and that is definitely what I would take into the relationships with my colleagues on both sides, and really try to build a shared understanding of, how do we need to show up together in collaboration. It's maybe like when you're married to someone and then you get a divorce, but you have a child together, and you still have to co-parent this child. Like it or not, the town and county are banded together for life, and we have to figure out ways to work collaboratively and effectively. So my goal is trying to continue to steward the relationships.
Thank you. There are days for sure when the county and the town elected officials have different opinions, and that's fine. Regardless of different opinions, we're both sworn to protect and develop and build the same community. We're all one community. And I think that it's important for all of us on this side of the table to realize that. I've been a county commissioner for 8 years, and some of my good friends are like, Luther, are you on the county commission or the town council? And I'm like, but most people don't care about the little internal fights that we have. And I'm fortunate, they just want to see us fill the potholes, both literally and metaphorically. I'm comfortable disagreeing. I'm comfortable disagreeing because I know that, at least from my perspective, and maybe I need some more self-awareness, we can disagree and still be fine. We can disagree and still be friends. We can disagree and come in the next day and work together on something where we were opposed to each other the day before. So the fact that we disagree doesn't bother me too much, because the public wants us to meet the needs of this community and is not interested in knowing that the town council said this and the county commission said that. We're grown-ups, we need to come in, work things out. If we disagree, that's okay.
I am also incredibly lucky to call both town councilors and county commissioners my friends, my mentors, and I am excited to serve with whoever we get in the elections this year. I think that we are building a community together. I live in the county. I spend a lot of time in town. I think we would say the opposite is true as well. Folks who live in town experience the county. Actually, I was having a conversation the other day where, and not to sound naive, but I was like, is this part of the county? Where is that line exactly, right? Like, we don't, right? It's a good question. Where is that line exactly on this road, right? And so I hope that we can approach problems with a collaborative nature. I think that friction in these conversations means that there's passion, that we care, that we are butting up against our values and how to express them in the policies that we make, the budgets that we spend, and that is a sign of a good and healthy government when we are transparent and we are having strong discussions about what comes next. There is a lot at stake for this community and for everyone in it. And if we were all just getting along, I think that that would mean that we're probably not pushing ourselves hard.
There are days that the town and county disagree. There are days that county commissioners disagree. Every day that we have talked about joint funding over the last year or two, I have disagreed with my colleagues on the county commission. And it basically comes down to the ability to fund our local governments. There is a line where town starts, but there is not a line where the county ends when it comes to that line between the town and the county. The town is in the county. Folks who live in town pay taxes to the county, 8 some odd mills. They pay about, I think, $500,000 in the town. 4 years ago, or shortly after I was elected, I rallied to help form the Joint Funding Task Force in hopes of coming up with a solution for this town-county funding issue. We didn't get very far. There's a lot of tribalism that happens when you start talking about money. Historically, the town and county have split the joint department funding 54-46. That's a population split. I got 2 points to make. One, the county has a bigger shovel. When the county raises 1 mill, we make $4.5 million of revenue. When the town raises a mill, they make $1 million. Those who tell you the population split is the most fair way of allocating costs are effectively telling you that the county bears no fiscal responsibility for those who live in the county, those taxpayers who live in the county, who happen to live within the town limits for the funding of joint departments. That's fire EMS, that's parks and rec, that's housing, that's START. That's effectively what we're telling you.
Well, there wouldn't be any problem once the city realizes the county's always right. Just kidding. I think both entities have the same purpose, and that's quality of life of this community. And I think that both groups have mutual respect. I'm sure we're going to disagree. In fact, I would be really concerned if we didn't disagree. If we went to every meeting and everything was all hunky-dory and everything's over in 15 minutes. But I think that as long as the welfare of the community is put first, that we will resolve conflicts between the city and the county.
There are several areas where the county and the town need to work together. Critically are those joint departments, and critically those joint departments are underfunded. And partly that is because they have grown a lot, and the county does collect county property tax from everybody, and the town does not collect property tax other than that $500,000. The town could collect more, but Commissioner Gardner makes a good point that the county is in the town. The county is benefiting. We're a very unique situation. But not only is it the joint departments, and that funding problem I hope we get back to. I don't want to spend too much time on it right now, but the town sewer plant is owned by the town, and the county has a whole bunch of sewer lines that we want to get out there to improve water quality, and we're going to have to connect to the town sewer plant. We have to work together. The Justice Center is a massive, big building that the county is in charge of and is getting built in town. Town reviews all the permits. We have to work together, even down to a crane agreement to make sure that the crane can swing around all the properties. Disagreement happens, and some disagreement is important, but even more important is resolving that disagreement. And that is my mission as a commissioner, to work with the town, from the mayor right now on down to all the councilors, identify the disagreement, resolve it. We have to, because I just listed so critical items that have to be addressed by both the town and the county.
All right, we've had our first red card played by Wes. You have 1 minute of extra time.
This issue is really important. It should be really important to everyone who lives in town in particular. And I know it's confusing, and I hesitate to use my red card. I like to keep those in my pocket, but it's too important. The town could collect more taxes, but in order to collect the amount of taxes that it would take the county to collect, they'd have to raise 4.5 times the mill as the county would have to raise. So the county could come and to the funding of the joint departments. And what I've suggested for years now is that we agree to a 60-40 funding split, which is where we are today. That's 2027's fiscal year. We're at a 60-40 funding split. And yeah, the county had to say no to a few things, but guess what? Even with a 60-40 funding split, the town is having to dig into their reserves in order to balance their budget. So the reality is the county has a bigger shovel. When we increase taxes, we can increase them by 1/4 or less to make up for the deficit in the funding of the joint departments. I told you what a few of the joint departments are. These are critical services for our community. We need to be better stewards of the funding mechanisms, and my argument has been and continues to be that the county needs to lean in instead of arguing over percentage points.
All right, well, next up, we're going to have Luther start off our question first.
I feel like we need like a referee whistle for that referee something.
I've finished with sentence.
We wanted to ask about the 90 Virginia Lane project that came up again for a pretty big decision this week. But the broader question there is just how you are going to negotiate the best deal for the county. There's been 2 years of negotiations on the 90 Virginia Lane. On other housing projects, there's been years of debate and dialogue with local families. What kind of negotiation skills do you bring, and how will you get the best deal?
Boy, that's a good one. Thank you. A couple thoughts on that, and boy, this could go on for a long time. I regret that we spent as much time as we did before we decided that this wasn't going to work. And yeah, some of us saw red flags, and some of us were hoping that there wouldn't be an issue, or we could work it out. And the red flags for me personally became more evident. And that's why I joined in the group yesterday that voted to take a new path. 2 things. I think we need to move fast. I do not think we need to wait until January to move on this. We need to get going. And we need to give a good hard look without assumptions, without preconditions. And we need to evaluate whether the county, and you said the county, but I assume by that you mean all of us, the county and the town, needs to decide whether we can go back to the model we used to use before the growth, where we do it ourselves. We're building a $120 million Justice Center. We've done other construction. Should we do this ourselves? Perhaps. Should we look at nonprofit partners? Perhaps. We need to do a quick evaluation of what the options are. We need to do a reassessment of what type of density and what type of product mix is appropriate there, what the community really needs. And most importantly, we need to do the thing that I stressed in May when we were meeting on the Virginians, and again yesterday, we need to make sure that we take advantage of the generosity of this community and we find socially motivated investors, people who will loan money at a lesser rate, who may donate like they did at Jackson Place. So we have some work to do and we need to do it quickly. Sorry.
Okay.
This is a really tough one. I think I mentioned earlier that I've been reading the newspaper, and as I was reading about this in the newspaper yesterday, talking to folks about what happened, my worst fear is that we are absolutely back to the drawing board at scratch. I think that that would be an incredible waste of this community's time, an incredible waste of our community's input already. I think we have learned some really intense lessons about red flags and when to listen to them, and how to evaluate the partners that come into projects like this with us. As far as getting to the best deal, what I will say is I want to see affordable homes, deed restricted affordable homes built at 90 Virginia as soon as possible. I want us to not be wasting time reevaluating, rehashing, and also having relationships like we just talked about in the last question derail this process.
How do we negotiate the best deal? Sometimes we say no, because the deal turns out to not be so good. I think that public-private partnerships have served this community well in getting affordable housing units built, but that doesn't mean they always will. And that doesn't mean that if you don't have the right people making the decisions who are willing to say no and willing to pay attention to those red flags and frankly be the first to really raise those red flags, that takes a lot of courage, that takes a lot of conviction, that takes experience, that takes an understanding of what is going on through these negotiations. I was that person. I continue to be the person banging my head against the wall to move this project forward. How do we move it forward? The next step is to lay out the options for the decision makers, the town and county. I am pushing to do that as quickly as possible. I am interested in one particular next step. That is to fund, build, manage, and own a public house facility. This is not a complicated project. Number one, we use schematic design to develop a cost estimate and a schedule. Number two, we research potential funding sources, especially revenue bonds. And number three, we develop revenue models based on the affordability mix that was in the original developer RFP that we agreed to so long ago. There is a path forward. It's not that complicated. I'm asking that we research that path and potentially take a step forward along it.
Well, we could really build some cheap housing with a concrete block building and build like a tenement building in South Chicago. I don't think anybody wants that. The hospital, we've been able to build a building, a 72-unit structure for less than $500 a square foot. It's going to come in at $52 million. I mean, there's no reason why that same thing. I mean, we even got city permits, which was a challenge. I think that the county and the city can agree to do a similar project on that same property. They may need to make it theirs, but I don't think that individual homes are going to work in that area because it's not going to be just enough density in order to solve the housing problem that we have. But I do think that a public-private partnership is viable. That's what we're doing with the hospital, and I think it can be done efficiently and to the benefit of the communities.
That was a big question that began with the Virginian and ended with how do you negotiate. As far as the Virginian goes, I kind of chunked it down. There was the project, there was the developer, and then there was the behind-the-scenes negotiation. The project had some things in my mind that made it not perfect. The developer had a few red flags that kind of grew and became a little bit more apparent over time. The behind-the-scenes negotiations also had some red flags. That leads into the negotiation topic. One of the ways that some of the negotiations, quote unquote, happened is that staff did arrange for 2 commissioners or 1 commissioner and 1 counselor to meet with the developer. And that might sound a little bit worrisome to you out there, and I kind of hope it does, because no one of us should be the negotiator. No one of us should be bringing our negotiation skills to the table and saying, end all be all, it's my way or the highway. It's a 5-person board and the majority rules, and in the end, and then when you're working with town, of course, the town council as well has 5 people, and they need a majority to move forward. So it's got to be a big group effort, and it's a very tricky process to get 10 electeds to negotiate with the developer. And this whole process, if we want to get back to the right project done the right way with the right developer at the Virginian, we need to do a little rejiggering. The county hasn't met to talk about that yet. The town hasn't met to talk about that yet. The 2 bodies have not met to talk about that yet. So I can tell you one vision I have, but I don't have a whole lot of time. But the 10 of us need to figure it out together.
Wow, what an unfortunate turn of events after 3 years of work. And I think the biggest loss would be that we don't learn from this. And so, personally, if I end up on this commission, what I'm interested in is first really understanding how did this fall apart? Where did cracks start to let the water in? And how do we identify those things a lot sooner? Red flags were identified pretty early on in the process when the developer came back and said that the cost to build this was pretty far outside of what they had originally scoped. And I think that that red flag was a real miss on the leadership's part. And the devil is in the details, and we really need to spend the due diligence looking through these things with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that we're not so far down the track that it feels like we can't get out of the deal. And it does seem like the deal was not good, and it was a really hard lesson for our community to make, that we spent so much time and money and effort, and then the whole thing fell apart. Another book I recently read is called Quit. I highly recommend it. It's all about knowing when to quit. And I think that is something that we need to stay on top of, is knowing that there are times where we're in over our heads and it is time to fold, but taking the lessons and coming to future decisions more wisely. And then something else I just want to throw in is that I don't want to let perfect be the enemy of good. I think that B+ is a really good score, and we should strive for that.
All right, before we get to our next question, Wes has used his final red card.
I also met with the developer. I met with the developer with the intention of signaling to them what I needed to see out of the project. And then I had a novel idea of how to negotiate. I did it in public. Anybody can go back and watch the March meeting. I negotiated with the developer in public. I asked the developer 2 things. Can we get something of value, right to first rental, for the first $10 million that you're asking us to subsidize this project with? The answer was yes. The second question I asked, can we get something of value for the second $10 million? The answer was yes. Ownership of units. The town and county have real needs. We have 340 people that work for us, and we have 26 housing units. So I was really excited. I mentioned that I had rainbows coming out of my head. 1 month later, 1 hour before our meeting, we were told that there was a misunderstanding, and all those negotiations were essentially for naught. They've literally poof into thin air. So I did the work. I had the guts to negotiate in public. It's hard to do, but I got yes and yes, and it turned out to not be true.
Thanks. All right, any more red cards? No? All right.
Sure, I'll give you one.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. Because the Virginia, it is critical. We were talking about affordable housing, that question to me, and we do have to have housing that our workers can afford. And that project marginally promised some of that. It's very expensive to get more of that, because if it costs even $500 a square foot and you want to build a 1,000 square foot unit that is a very livable unit, you're looking at $500,000. And if the affordability to rent that just doesn't repay that, then you need a subsidy. And the more affordable it is, the bigger that subsidy. When I was talking about behind the scenes negotiation, it wasn't just the electeds. It really was a huge, lengthy negotiation with the town and the county attorneys negotiating with the developer. Finally, we had a consultant with expertise negotiating with the developer. There were real problems with that process, and those problems bubbled to the surface the longer it went on, and that was part of tipping me over the edge. Really tough. Allie is exactly right. We have to learn from this.
All right, for our next question, we're gonna have Karen start us off.
Destination versus community. Who are we building for? What would it look like for the county to grow the tourism economy in a way that also improves quality of life for year-round residents? Do you believe it's possible for both things to keep going?
I have mentioned that I believe very much in the comprehensive plan's vision. Community first, resort second. I understand that our community, a lot of our economic driver is tourism, is being a destination. But I think that people come here because we're a community, because this place is really special. And we shouldn't lose that in the race to be this amazing resort town. As far as it being possible, I've seen this be possible. We have an incredible preserved block in the middle of downtown because our community came together and said we don't want a massive hotel built on top of a place that is an incredible third space for our community that houses beautiful local businesses that can also house our history and be an open space for us to gather. So yes, I do believe it's possible to both be a place where we are a destination and where we can showcase our ability to be a community as well.
I engage and have engaged with visitors to this community for 30 years. I have worked retail downtown for 30 years. And I'm going to say something a little controversial. The visitors take a lot of flack. A lot of flack for the traffic, a lot of flack for the lines at restaurants. And the truth is that people who complain about traffic the most are in traffic the most. We need to look in the mirror a lot more. I'm proud to serve on the Destination Stewardship Committee. That's been one of my hardest roles as a county commissioner. That's a group who gets together every month to work on the implementation of the SDMP. That's the Sustainable Demand Management Plan. We got to come up with it eventually. But what I've learned in my experience, what I've learned through that is a healthy community creates a positive visitor experience. When we're happy, when folks who are frontline workers are happy, the visitor experience is a lot better. And I have worked hard on that committee to try and make sure those frontline workers have the support, have the incentive programs around what they do to take training so that they understand what the benefits are for the visitor. So I'm always going to side on the side of community, but you're also going to hear me advocate for the visitor, because when the visitor experience is positive, the community experience is also positive.
Well, we've certainly become a company town when it comes to the ski area. The ski area drives a lot of destination issues, and we've really capitulated to them quite a bit over the last 21 years. I do think that we can preserve what we have here, but we have to put someone else. We can't just keep building one big hotel after another big hotel. It just doesn't work here. For one thing, because where are we going to put the people who are going to need to work in these hotels? I mean, that's a serious problem. You know, when you can say, oh, there's mitigation fees, but mitigation fees really don't cover the true expense of what we're doing when we build another 150-room hotel or like another slide on Sill King. I mean, I've never heard a visitor come here at this point and say, boy, it's just a terrible place to come visit. They don't say that. So there are not a lot of things that we need to improve or make bigger to keep our tourist economy going. Our biggest problem right now is that if you notice, there's no tour buses here anymore. There's one tour company that comes from Pine Dearman. The reason there's no tour buses is because we made it so expensive for the hotels and the restaurants that the tour buses don't stop here. Roof goes right through. Some people may think that's a good thing. Some people may think it's a bad thing. But the point is, that's what's happening. So, to some extent, we're limiting ourselves just because we've become such a high-end incentive.
I had the good fortune of being the chair of the Planning Commission when we were working with the 2012 Comprehensive Plan. I put a lot of dots on the wall to help formulate that plan, and then I chaired the meeting when we approved it and sent it to the county commissioners. I do believe in that comprehensive plan, which says let's protect the ecosystem and yet allow for some community vitality. And the growth management element is how to balance all that. It is a very difficult process, but understanding the land development regulations is crucial. And it's partly because of my passion that I think one of the key things is tourism, but also the type of growth that we're experiencing from the folks moving here and building the big houses. I dug into a certain kind of exempt subdivision called the family exempt subdivision. We're required to do that by state law. If you are a family, you own property, and you want to give a piece of property to one of your kin, you can do that without any public process. Out in the rural areas, that can create a very small lot. I dug into it. I understood that that very small lot could still hold a 10,000 square foot house. That system, in time, could be gamed for the type of very wealthy folks that are living here and that are dramatically impacting the community, creating a lot of jobs. Now we have to address that. That's coming up. Partly why it's coming up, because we're working as a board to bring that and ask the planning staff to address that issue. That's one of the items that I brought to the table, brought to the fore, and that's the kind of thing that I hope to continue doing.
I think it's obvious that our economy is dependent on tourism, and we need to do everything we can to steward that economic system. And I think part of that is giving the visitor a really high quality experience. And what I experience as a resident that has many guests come and visit is that traffic is horrible, restaurants are overpriced, things are hard for tourists that don't make a certain amount of money. And I think that more of the same is going to keep delivering more of the same pinch that we've been experiencing around affordability, around traffic. So I definitely am in support of limits to growth. And if we are to build more hotels, I think that the only way that that's an acceptable path for our community is if the company is to build enough housing to house the entire workforce, plus helping get us out of the hole that we're already in. If we're building new commercial development that isn't making housing for all of their workforce, plus helping to get us out of the hole that we're in, we're going to keep digging ourselves deeper into this hole. So I think that it's important for us to steward our economy, but we have to be realistic that there are limits. And I think we're experiencing these things. We're starting to see the edges fray, and I don't want us to get out ahead of our skis on it.
Great question. I love this stuff. I might take my minute, so if I see stop, I'll ask for another minute. First, tourism brings a lot of value. We all know that. One, it brings sales tax, which I didn't know how much I loved sales tax until I became a county commissioner. And it brings also, the opportunities for us to have good restaurants and all sorts of amenities that we would not have otherwise. Two, you really, and this gets into the subjective, but you really hope that the visitation here is not just about expensive stuff. You hope it's transformative. It was for me when I came here in 1976 with two friends, just graduated high school in a mill town in the South. This was transformative. It's like, wow, this is the table of contents for my life. And it changed my life. And I'm very fortunate to be here. We also don't want to do what Gatlinburg, Tennessee did, and a lot of other places, and substitute nature-based tourism for amusement. And that's why I was proud I voted against the proposal that came from someone through the state, because it's regulated statewide, to turn Whole Bowl into off-track betting. I don't want Jackson to be known as an off-track place to bet on horse races. I want people to come here for the nature, for the adventure, for the beauty, for the wildlife, and that kind of stuff. And I hope we don't become a center for putt-putt golf courses and bump cars and stuff like that. And so I'm taking my minute. Thank you. And so it has to be guided, and we're doing a better job of that. But just like Ali said, the challenge is there's too much. There's too much tourism. There's too much banking. I did the research, and by the year of 2032, I said this once already, earlier. By the year 2032, every building between Smith's and Dairy Queen is going to be a bank based on our current trends. And so there's too much banking, there's too much finance, there's too much construction, there's too much retirement living, and everything. And so we've got to learn to not just throw coal into the boiler, but to hit the brakes. And for a longer exposition of that, I'm proud that I was the co-author of a book published by the University of Utah Press in 2024 called A Watershed Moment, Limits to Growth in the American West. In Jackson, Teton County, and other places around the West, for various reasons, wildfire, wildlife, wilderness values, water, have got to learn to say enough is enough.
All right, thank you, candidates. We're going to have Wes start off this next question.
All right, this is the final question from the journalists. How can we harness the wealth concentrated here for the public benefit?
First. I heard somebody say taxing something out of it's like every year a rite of passage. The study comes out that shows Teton County, we are what we are, and the income, and I get a bunch of messages and letters. Hey, congratulations! It's a challenge, and what's happening with wealth disparity in this community is dramatic. What's happened since 2020 is schismatic. In the history of this community, there's been nothing like what happened in 2020 when the world kind of discovered what Jackson is. And when I say the world, I mean the global elite. I don't mean that global elite, but the money, the wealth of the world has discovered Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I do a little bit of investing. As an investor, a lot of people are looking for places to park their money, an investment that's going to give them good rates of return and is safe over the long haul. Guess what? That's us. That's so many homes in our community have disappeared into somebody's investment portfolio. We've got to figure that out. We've got to react to that, because otherwise the cost of housing just gets through the roof. The cost of property taxes goes through the roof. These luxury homes that get built is literally symbols of just immense wealth. It's all they are for a lot of the folks who are building them here. 10,000 square foot homes that are literally just to show off to their friends. We've got to stop that development.
I think that one of the things that's absolutely mandatory is we need to work with the state legislature to get a transfer tax. It makes no sense if there's no transfer tax here. We're not going to fund a lot of the infrastructure projects we need funded. We also the state legislature, of course, is very difficult. I'm sure as Liz has told you, that it's difficult to work with. But we need to graduate the property tax. People who have these huge homes should be paying a higher percentage of their tax of the dollar than somebody that has a small home. That's just the way it is. And that's the only way we're going to be able to harvest something developed here. The other thing I think that we need to do is have a tax on all the jets that come into Jackson, private jets. These people are paying literally tens of thousands of dollars per hour to fly on a private jet into Jackson, and they're having an impact on our community, and basically they are not paying anything for that impact. And I think that we need to start a fee for those planes coming. But that's just one of the ideas in that.
We as a county government can tap into the wealth of the community by first of all understanding the values and the passions of this community, and then through a very clever use of our state granted taxing authority. And I'll give you a great example, which is the block where Cafe Genevieve, Persephone, and the History Museum are. That block was catalyzed by a specific purpose excise tax that the community voted for. I argued very hard to get that item on the ballot, and it was a hard case to make because I said, hey, if we can get this $2 million raised through a sales tax, the community is going to step up and do the rest. Trust me. And people would say, trust you. And I said, trust me. And I got it on the ballot with everybody else's support eventually. The community approved it, the community then stepped up, and I can't remember the full amount, but they contributed to prevent that entire block from becoming a huge hotel and turning into what it is now. Another example would be the wildlife crossings that, again, the community stepped up to fund through a specific purpose excise tax. We can use that to catalyze yet more investment, philanthropy to come in and help us with wildlife crossings. Also the conservation specific purpose excise tax. So that is a direct and immediate way that I have a lot of experience with to catalyze the wealth of this community. We also, if we wanted to directly impact the wealth, could, but only if we raise property taxes. I'm not willing to go there because that impacts everybody.
This would require changes at the state legislature, but things are kind of in motion in this direction already. But it would be great if we could tax second, third, fifth homeowners at a higher tax rate than primary residents. I also think that, the block is such an inspiring story for our community, and that model can be replicated to more lots. So, maybe that's the development of a community land trust or tacking on some additional programming or priorities for our conservation land trust. But we're the wealthiest county in the world. That's a crazy thing. And the fact that we have these seemingly intractable problems, it's not because of money, it's just because of coordination failure. And I'm really interested in bringing people together that have a shared interest, that have this mutual vision for a community that isn't just surviving, but it's genuinely thriving, to do things like, more safe the block projects. So those are some thoughts.
Good thought question. Lends itself to a beer more than this setting, but there's no value in vilifying tourists or skids or bankers. I kind of joke about banking, or rich people. That's not the issue. The issue is that it is about community and public goods. And two examples. One is, and yeah, it's great we can think of ways to tax people, but to tax jets we got to get Congress to change the law. To tax to tax some real estate transfers. We got to get Cheyenne to change the law. And I wish that was in the store and make that happen. I'm curious. But Gil Ordway, one of the early people here of means. Gil donated the money for this. Gil donated to conservation groups and the land trust. And Gil donated to social services. And Gil was part of the community. He embraced the community instead of building a literal or metaphorical wall around himself. And that's the key. We have to create the culture where people that come here that are of means are part of the community and want to be part of the community. The second good example is Ian and Annette Cumming, another family of means that donated significant money, somewhere around $20 million to help build the Jackson Street apartments. And so it's mostly about creating the culture and the community and the expectations that all of us are part of this community and they don't create their own private universe that happens to be here but that is not part of the community. What's the answer for building that culture? It's not easy, but culture does matter.
So I want to talk about Amendment A a little bit because I like what Allie was saying because about this, it's a matter of a failure of coordination. So we have Amendment A now. It was passed in 2024. We have this tool where we can tax different properties at different rates because of our representative, Liz Storer, reaching across the aisle and co-sponsoring a bill with someone across the aisle and getting something through our state legislature that is very opposed to basically getting anything done right now. And so I agree that we have to coordinate bigger, we have to have bigger ideas, we have to be willing to push and find a way through for our community to have these tools. We have to fight to keep mitigation rates as imperfect of a tool as they are. We can't afford to lose them, and the state is wanting to come for that. We also have to take this opportunity that was given to us by our representative and by our state legislature with Amendment A and make sure that we can actually use that to its full extent and tax second homeowners at a different rate. I think that having empty homes, I used to live in East Jackson, and it used to be it was a thriving community, a thriving street of homes that had lights on at night and kids riding bikes up and down the street. And if you drive through East Jackson now, other than our beautiful, affordable housing neighborhoods, the lights are off. These are just homes to protect people's wealth, and they need to pay for that.
All right, that's the end of that question. We're gonna head back down to Brent to start us off for our second to last question before we get to closing remarks.
All right, this was submitted by an audience member. There is currently only one woman on the commission and no other diversity. What is your plan to consider all of the diverse voices of our community?
Well, it's disappointing that we don't have more people who apply for these positions. When I we got an open board position in the hospital, and I did everything I could to try to get people to apply for the position who weren't represented on the board. In other words, the board mostly are white males and white females. There aren't any Hispanics. There are Hispanics in the community, I couldn't get anybody to do it. I really tried. And I'm not sure what the reason for that is, but I personally try to do everything I can to have a totally open door policy. I listen to everybody. I have Republicans that are friends. I probably thump that out. But I think we need to listen to all sides of this community. And I think that what's going on with the sheriff's office at this point with the detainees being held for ICE is just unacceptable. And that we need to do what we can as our commissioners to try to influence that policy change.
Thank you. This community throughout its history has recognized when talented women are running for office, and some of the best and most influential county commissioners in the history of this county were women. Muffy Moore, who was one of the first and most critical votes to actually get zoning in place in 1978. Sandy Shuptrine, who won repeatedly as independent, and I can go on. And Commissioner Macker is an excellent commissioner. And how to facilitate more, I've actually helped, I've tried to assist and help and even donated from time to time the campaigns of highly qualified individuals that were women. In terms of reaching down deeper into the community, I've been getting involved in a very careful, cautious way to try and figure out how to work with the sheriff and resolve a practice of his that is causing immense discomfort, angst, fear in the foreign-born community. The reason I'm doing that very carefully is because I hope that we're all aware that if the wrong headline comes out about that and this community attracts the wrong kind of attention and ICE officials end up permanently stationed here, that could be worse. I know that it's a huge problem right now, but I have carefully worked to move that to the front, and the commission has allocated funds to help with an assessment of that situation.
Thanks for the question. I love this. And something I've been thinking about a lot is how to do things differently. And this idea I came across is this concept called citizens' assemblies. And if you were at the shelter forum, you heard me speak on this. But essentially what it is it's inviting the community in to be a part of the decision-making process. And the community members are compensated for their time, and there is appropriate time to get them educated on different topics so that they can actually make informed decisions. And, I mentioned this earlier, but stepping into this seat is a lot. I'm an educated, white, middle-class person that's well-connected in the community, and it still feels like there are so many barriers to entry. And so I think that we have to give people more opportunity to dip their toes in ways that feel inviting and safe. And I definitely echo what Mark said about keeping our immigrant community safe, especially during this administration. But that's not, I don't want to let that be an excuse for us not inviting them into the conversation. So if I am elected, I would be super keen on trying out the citizen and assembly model to get more diverse voices. Thanks.
Good question. First, I want to be really clear about something that everybody here acknowledges, that what I'm about to say demonstrates a tremendous amount of hubris and hypocrisy on my party. But I kind of mean that kind of done. I'd love to see more younger people on this board. Love to see better gender diversity. It's hard. I've talked to a lot of people. I've tried to recruit a lot of people. It's a challenge. People are working 2 and 3 jobs. They can't hardly afford to live here, and also people want to be out in the mountains. And so, and also the pool is shrinking. A lot of people that I thought some years ago would make a great candidate for the commission now live in Teton County, Idaho. And thank goodness some of them run for local office there, because they need lives. It's incumbent upon somebody in my situation to work extra hard to listen, and to listen beyond the normal kind of circle of people that I would listen to. It's incumbent upon people like me to encourage others to run, and not just say, hey, you should run, but help, spend time and help people understand what it is, and help them understand. It's incumbent upon us to look at that kind of diversity when we are appointing people to the numerous volunteer boards that we have, because that's where people learn about the community, and they learn how meetings work, and they get the confidence to engage further. And so I try my best to keep that in mind when we're appointing people to various boards. And it's a whole other question about the immigrant community, which I think is deeply important, and as Mark said, troubling.
I might use my red card the way that Luther did previously to get my whole point about the South. I think I actually asked a very similar question at a previous year's forum just like this. So maybe they recycled it, I don't know. But I co-founded Jackson Hole Pride in 2021 with Andy Munns. And what I brought to that was my community organizing background. And what I mean by that is that I knew that I needed a pride community here as a newly out LGBTQ woman. But within that community, some of the principles of that community is accepting diversity, bringing people in. And what I needed, I knew was not what everyone else needed from that community. And so what I set about to create was that I would build the thing that I needed. I needed small community dinners. I needed people to watch queer movies with me. And I needed some new friends. But I also met folks who said, I want to go climbing with my friends. I want to go dance with my friends. I want to make art with my friends. And I created Jackson Hole Pride in a way that all of those people could come together and create the spaces that they needed and empower them to do that. I'm also really proud that I'm going to be stepping down from that board I guess it's next month, because I am really excited about the next leadership that has grown up with this organization in the short time that it's been with us, and that I am excited to hand this over to them so they can create the future that they need and want. I'm using my red card because I also want to talk about the demographic change that Luther is talking about, because I think I want to make a fine point of this, that if we push out all of the young people, all of the families, all of the critical service workers, all of the small business owners, if we push everyone out who is not older, wealthy, you are just going to see a more aged, more single demographic county commission. Your leadership is going to look like the people who are only allowed and able to stay in this community. So I think it's critically important, not that our leadership reflects our community, but it is also true in reverse that our community is reflected in our leadership.
Yes, good.
I was relieved and excited to hear that I'd be sharing the stage with two women. It's been a joy to get to know y'all and to appreciate your courage, your fresh perspectives, and when we don't have representation that reflects who we are, then we all suffer. I have a son and a daughter, and my daughter is a real piece of work. She, Lord knows what she can achieve, but I want her to see women in power. I want her to see that what's possible for her. And if it's, we live in a world, especially since 2024, where I see a lot of old, rich white men driving us right off a cliff, intentionally, for their own benefit. And I think one of the real gifts that women bring to our society is empathy and an understanding that it's important to know and to feel what it's like to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. And I'm not saying that because I'm a man, I can't feel that, but I've had to really work at that. And I appreciate that women bring that perspective in a more natural sense. When it comes to our immigration policy, our country's broken. One of my favorite classes in college was a history of immigration, and the number one takeaway I got from that was every 20 years up till 1972 in this country's history, we had a path to naturalization. 1972 is the last time we had a comprehensive path to naturalization for folks who've made the effort to come here. And most of our ancestors made that same effort and faced those same barriers. We're here because of this path to naturalization. That was Iran says.
All right, this is our final question. We're going to have Mark kick us off, and then after that, we'll have closing statements.
Cool, maybe we try to go a little rapid fire with this response. We got so many audience questions, so thank you guys all so much for being engaged. It helps us as journalists because we have a month more to ask them questions, but you all have another month to ask the questions too.
Sure.
There's one general one that might touch for all of us to meet our vision. Part of that vision, again, is a vibrant community full of vitality. It needs a safety net. How do we catalyze that philanthropy to county, town funding, to the human services, to the community development organizations, so that the philanthropists in the community who are part of the community and have the means are sure that their dollars are going to be effective in bolstering that safety net. That's part of the community. All of that is important for me and my legacy. It's that we have a vibrant community that does have housing, that lives within its means in terms of development. That means that the developers do have to be assessed an appropriate fee to help mitigate their impacts. And that leads, again, to the vibrant community that I hope is my legacy.
I'm largely just going to punt this to my closing statement, but I hope my legacy is that we look back on the 4 years that I served and we said, wow, we really got some things done, and we got things done that changed our community for the better. People were happier, commutes were shorter, cohesion and well-being amongst our residents was better. I'm hoping that the legacy is just genuine, authentic progress, real betterment for the people and our ecosystem.
Legacy, gosh, I have to say, I don't think about that a whole lot, but I'd like my legacy to be that I effectively advanced community, and that I demonstrated a willingness to say no to bad ideas, whether it was an off-track betting thing, whether it was a housing proposal that I thought was based on fantastical assumptions and not realistic and not in the community's interest. I want to be known as being willing to stand up and sometimes tackle others. Been told I have bad intent because I've done that in the past. And so my legacy would be that I want to be known as someone who advanced this community, conservation, water quality, wildlife, also public safety. I'm happy that Local 5067 of the International Association of Firefighters has endorsed me because of my record on public safety, willingness to stand up when it was unpopular and make sure that we did what was right by our firefighters. And so I want to be known as also someone who wasn't disagreeable about it when he had to say no, and more often than not led us towards being a better community rather than trying to prevent us from becoming a worse community. Because the real goal was leadership towards this place being a community and not just a place to make money.
I hope that if I have the opportunity to serve on the county commission, that I can be a representative whose life and values and struggles are legible and recognizable to the people who are here working so hard and are here by the skin of their teeth and a whole lot of luck, like myself. I also hope that what I leave behind is who I bring forward. I was encouraged to run for office by several leaders in this community, and I feel really grateful for that encouragement. It is often said, I think, that women need to be asked like a bajillion times, like 7 times or something like that, to run for office or to step up into a leadership position, where a man only has to be asked once. So I was asked a lot of times by a lot of people, and I'm glad to say I did not give up on that. But one of the stipulations that I had was that I had to feel like I had secure housing to be able to step up, and that this is the first cycle where I can say that that feels true enough that I can run. And so I want to look for the next person that needs to be asked 7 or 8 or 9 times because they have good ideas and strong values and a moral compass and has a life that is legible to me, that I can recognize, that I can relate to, and ask them a bunch of times to run. So I hope that I can bring someone else behind.
My hope would be that you would think of my legacy as having been well represented by me. I take that responsibility very seriously. I work very hard, day in and day out, to represent you well. And nothing gives me more satisfaction than when somebody says, I know it's a thankless job, but it's like, well, you just thanked me. And that's representing the community. I have a lot of things that I'm trying to do, and I hope to continue to try to do. We have a lot of septic systems in the floodplain. I am working hard to encourage sewer connections for all septic systems in the floodplain. Come to a Start Board meeting, you'll hear me as liaison from the county talk about all the things that I hope that we can achieve with START. Predominantly that we have a giant system, but it's not comprehensive to the riders. I wanted to prove that. We have LDRs, the laws that protect our environment. We've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. I want to be a part of that. We've talked a little bit. I use my red card on the front as joint department's relationship with town. I try to be a bridge to town. I try to create an opportunity for us to work towards solving that problem as opposed to continuing to punt the problem down the road. And finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't say I want to be there when 90 Virginian Way is built, funded, owned, managed by the public. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you much. But you sit on. It's like, I really don't care what's going down my tombstone. I would like to be remembered that I was part of a commission that got a lot of stuff done and solved the difficult problems that we have in this county. I don't care about any personal recognition for that. I want to be part of a group that gets things done. And if I want to be remembered for anything, it's that I listened to everybody, that I was approachable, and that when I disagreed with somebody or voted in a way that they didn't like, that at least they understood why I did it and they didn't hate me for it. That's what I kind of.
All right, that was our final question of the evening. Patty is going to kick us off for our closing statements tonight.
So I'm going to use one of my red cards and make this 2 minutes. I want you to imagine the boldest, bravest, most beautiful future you can for our community. What are you seeing? Whatever it is, I believe this is possible. You see, I have been to the future and we won. This is what I saw. We rediscovered how to disagree without becoming enemies and began finding common ground. From there, we saved more than just the block. Instead of mega hotels and vacation rentals, vacant lots were becoming community assets. Housing for locals, childcare and community centers, food forests. Expanses of Kentucky bluegrass have become explosions of aster and goldenrod. There was a boom in biodynamic farms and regenerative ranches. We hosted potlucks and book clubs, and mutual aid was abundant. We turned aging homes into duplexes for teachers and firefighters instead of empty third homes for private equity partners. We no longer lost our mornings and evenings to Highway 22. We healed our watershed and our children played freely in Flat Creek once more. We measured our success by the abundance of birdsong and butterflies, by the number of neighbors we knew by name, by the decibel of children's laughter in the streets, by our elders' well-being and sense of belonging. I'm not here to tell you this was easy. It certainly was not. However, we realized we had a choice. We could continue down the default path we were on of widening inequality and endless extraction, or choose another way toward a truly sustainable, vibrant, and just life for all. We accepted that more of the same thinking and acting was going to lead us to more of the same dysfunction and destruction. We realized we could be cynical and complacent, or we could try to respond to our challenges in new ways. And so, despite all the incentives and conditioning, despite all the odds and obstacles, we chose courage over cynicism, imagination over inevitability, and we genuinely changed our community for the better. This is the future I'm working to help build. I hope you're coming with me.
You got
I may take my last red card. I think I have one left. First, it really is an honor and a pleasure to sit at this table with the five of you. I really do appreciate this. I admire each and every one of you. I also want to thank everyone here for coming out on a beautiful night, to listen to a bunch of politicians and wannabe politicians talk. Kudos for that. It's great that this community is engaged as it is. And it was also great because I saw all 5 city council members here. Thank you for coming out as well. And also thank you for the work that you do together. Some days, like anything, some days challenging, but always out of a sense of shared commitment. I just want to emphasize that I really enjoy advocating for this community. It's kind of weird, actually. But I really do enjoy it. I think I'm well trained for it. I really enjoy the work we do representing this community in front of all of our federal partners. The closer they are to our county, the more they seem to be a partner. But I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy working with the Game and Fish Department and the Highway Department, even though we sure do disagree. And you're going to see me engage more and more in that, given the growing problems we have with both transportation capacity and safety. And I enjoy the land use decisions. And the harder the decisions, in some ways, the more invigorating it is. And I feel like I'm trained well to do it. It's gratifying to get things done, like the spec measures, like the water quality management plan, like our wildlife protection programs, like the 35-year lease on the Munger Mountain section. There's a lot of good things that are gratifying to do, and we have a lot more work to do. Sometimes you have to say yes, and I'm thinking about housing in particular. Sometimes you have to say no, because we're not getting a good deal, and sometimes no leads us to a better yes on down the road. And so, did you give me my minute, Susan?
I did.
Okay, am I done?
You are.
That's just great.
That was clear. I love that.
When I think about Teton County in 20 years from now, I don't think about what we are going to build. I think about who is still going to be here. I like to joke, well, it's not, I'm a Wilson mom, and I love to embrace this title that is just a huge joke in our community because it is such a privilege. I'm holding on by the skin of my teeth. Like I said, I live in a tiny house on wheels and 370 square feet with my wife, my daughter, 2 dogs, and a cat. It is crazy, but it is our dream home. And it was made possible because of a big idea by the landowner, by a willingness to come together, by a willingness to hear and say yes to new and different ideas and experiment so that a family like mine can make a home. So I want Teton County to become a positive example for other communities, a place that other communities can learn from. I am also going to use my red card on this one, only use another minute. That we can be an example that other communities can learn from. We can be a crown jewel of protecting our public lands, protecting clean water, protecting the character of our town and county. So I think that with good policy and brave leadership, our future can grow, our future growth can strengthen our community and not detract from it. But most of all, I believe that this community is ready for a new generation of leadership. Leadership that listens more than it talks, that works toward the vision of our comprehensive plan, that promises to put community first and actually delivers, and that isn't afraid to challenge how we've always done things and embrace new ideas. I believe that serving in public office is not simply about winning and holding on to a seat. It is a deep responsibility to leave this community stronger and better than we found it. A neighbor recently told me community can't be bought, it must be earned, and so I'd be honored to earn your trust and your vote. I'm Karen Chin, I'm running for County Commission.
Echoing the thanks, really appreciate every single one of you who's here tonight. I look at each of you and I think about the 10 friends you're going to tell about what happened tonight. So really appreciate the commitment to civic engagement. Democracy dies in darkness. Thanks for being a light here tonight. Why should you vote for me? If you want somebody who's going to study the problems deeply, who's going to work toward real solutions, who's going to make thoughtful decisions despite imperfect information, and who's going to act decisively in the face of adversity. That's who I am. That's how I lead. That's how I've spent the last 4 years doing my best to represent you. I believe that Jackson can be the city on the hill. We've got a long way to go, but there are certain aspects we already are. Our composting program is one that the nation has taken heed of. And if you think I'm not delivering for you, reach out to me, please.
Well, thank you all for coming, and thanks to the league for having this event. And please come tomorrow night and see what my deputies and Krista have to say about the corner of town when I leave office. Should be irritating, I think. Right, Russ? Okay. I don't know how many of you all were here, but when Breck O'Neill built a new warehouse in South town, this he was one of my water runners, and the warehouse was totally empty. They hadn't moved anything into it, and there was a big community party. And in that party, I'll use both my red cards. They had a big community party, and the great thing about that for us, I mean, there were skits and all sorts of stuff, but there were movie stars, there were tradesmen. I mean, it was a total cross-section of the community. And it would be great if we had events like that, but we don't anymore. And I'm not sure they're ever possible. You know, if you read Billionaire Wilderness, a lot of people who were interviewed here said, oh, their friends, they invite their ski instructor over for dinner all the time. And I asked the author, I called him after him and asked him, did you ever ask the question how many times the ski instructor asked their employer over for dinner? And he never asked that question. And so, you know, it's hard to get people engaged in the community when the only thing they do is employ people. And I think it is important, like Luther said, we need to get these people engaged in the community so there'll be more philanthropic community. A lot of people are, but we need to get more involved. That's the only way we're going to get things done here. I mean, they save literally tens of millions of dollars living in the state of Wyoming because they don't pay state income tax, and they choose this county because this is the best county in the state to live in. So, you know, it's a matter that they do owe us. They owe the county, and they need to be energized to participate in the county. And I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, and if you don't mind, Susan, I'll use my second grade card as well. To wrap up tonight, I want to tell a little story about where Karen Chin lives. That landowner had a compliance complaint against them. A very wealthy landowner nearby came to the county and said, hey, looks like there's a bunch of folks living and kind of temporarily, or I don't know, in tiny houses on this property. How can that be legal? And they filed that complaint, and it finally got up to the Board of County Commissioners. And it was a use that had to have been established through a historic non-conforming use that workers that worked in various elements of the history of this valley, building it, were there, living, and they had to prove that. So we had an amazing and enjoyable walk back through time to workers who built trails during the CCC area. era, then to the first dude ranchers, then to the folks the first people who built the tram, who lived on that property. And it was a stretch, and the planning department had recommended the denial. And yet there was this voice in me that said, we have to make this work. And I worked really hard to make it work. I had no idea that one day, one of the people living on that property would be running for county commission. That is really gratifying. That was a little battle that is kind of a big deal. We're facing bigger battles in the community to address that big growth, big houses, the very wealthy people moving here that aren't so much part of the community. And that's on the table now before us as we address in the rural areas the kind of subdivision that really shouldn't be going on. It's not part of our vision, not part of the comprehensive plan, and I'm working on that as well. It has been a real, true honor to serve you as a county commissioner. I'm looking back with humility at times that I didn't stand up strong enough, like I did for where Karen Chin lives, and I've learned from those lessons, and I am looking forward to times that I will be standing strong for you. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
All right, that concludes our Democratic County Commission Forum. Thank you again all for being here. We really appreciate it. And thank you to the League of Women Voters, KHL 89.1, Buck Grill, our candidates. If you would like to watch this back or have someone else watch it, it will be available to stream on the library website. And there will be Spanish translation available. Thank you.